The Book of Genesis, chapters 29 through 35. Chapter 29. Then Jacob arose onto his feet, and went towards the land of the sons of the east. And he looked and saw a well in the field, and there were by it 3 flocks of sheep lying down, for from that well they watered the flocks. But a great stone was on the mouth of the well. So when all the flocks had collected there, they rolled away the stone and watered the sheep, and then returned the stone unto the mouth of the well until another time. Jacob therefore asked them, Brothers, where do you come from? And they replied, We are from Charan. Then he asked them if they knew Laban the son of Nahor. When they answered, We know him. He next asked them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And here is Rachel his daughter coming with his sheep. Then he asked, Look, it is full day already. Is it not time to water the cattle and sheep, that they may go and feed? But they replied, We cannot until all the flocks are collected, and they roll away the stone from off the mouth of the well and water the sheep. Whilst he was speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she shepherded them. But it happened, that when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, the brother of his mother, and the sheep of Laban his mother's brother, that Jacob rolled the stone from off the mouth of the well, and watered the sheep of his mother's brother Laban. Then Jacob kissed Rachel, and lifted up his voice, and wept. And Jacob said to Rachel, I do it because I am a relative of your father, and because I am the son of Rebekah. So she ran and reported it to her father. When Laban had heard the report about Jacob, the son of his sister, he ran to invite him, and embraced him, and kissed him, and brought him to his home, where he related to Laban all these events. Then Laban said, You are my bone and my flesh. So he stayed 5 days with him, when Laban said to Jacob, Since you are my relative, now serve me, and also inform me what wages I shall pay you. Now Laban had 2 daughters, the name of the eldest Leah, and the name of the youngest Rachel. But the eyes of Leah were timid, and those of Rachel perfect in form and beautiful to see, and Jacob loved Rachel. So he replied, I will serve you 7 years for your youngest daughter Rachel. Laban then replied, Good, she shall be yours. I will give her for a wife after you have stayed with me. So Jacob waited for Rachel 7 years, but they were to him like a single day because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for the time is up, and I will go to her. Laban then collected all the men of the place and made a feast, and when it was dark he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went to her. Laban also gave Zilpah his servant to Leah to be her servant. But when it was morning he discovered it was Leah, and said to Laban, Why have you done this to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Then why have you cheated me? But Laban answered, It is not our custom in this country to give the younger before the elder. Count the 7 for this, then I will give to you also the other, and for her you shall serve with me another 7 years afterwards. Jacob therefore agreed to it, that he would serve thus. So he gave Rachel his daughter to him for a wife. Laban also gave to Rachel Bilhah his servant to be her servant. He therefore went to Rachel, and he loved Rachel completely, and served to him other 7 years afterwards. But the ever-living saw that he hated Leah, so he opened her womb, but Rachel was childless. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said that, The ever-living has looked on my sorrow, so that now my husband may love me. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, Now the ever-living has heard that he hates me, so he has given to me also this. And she called his name Simeon. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and she said, Now certainly my husband will cling to me, for I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore she called his name Levi. She also conceived again and bore a son, and she said, This time I will praise the Lord. So she called his name Judah. Then she ceased to bear children. Chapter 30. When Rachel saw that she bore no child to Jacob, she envied her sister, and said to Jacob, Give me children, and if not, I shall die. But Jacob's anger fired at Rachel, and he answered, Am I in the place of God to hold back from you the fruit of your body? She therefore said, See now my attendant Bilhah, go to her, and she shall bear at my knee, so that I also myself shall have children from her. So she gave to him Bilhah her servant for a wife. And Jacob went to her, and she conceived and bore a son to Jacob. Then Rachel said, God has done me justice, and also has heard my voice, and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Again Bilhah the servant of Rachel conceived and bore a son to Jacob, when Rachel exclaimed, I struggled with God, I also struggled with my sister. So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she ceased to bear, she took Zilpah her attendant, and gave her to Jacob for a wife. So Zilpah the servant of Leah bore a son to Jacob. Then Leah said, By a troop, and called his name Gad. Zilpah the attendant of Leah also bore a second son to Jacob, and Leah exclaimed, I am blessed, for the women will bless me. She therefore called his name Asher. Reuben once went out at the time of wheat harvest, and found love apples in the field, and brought them to Leah his mother, when Rachel said to Leah, Give me, I pray, some of your son's love apples. But she said, Is it a trifle that you have taken my husband? And would you also take the apples of my son? When Rachel replied, Come now, he shall sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's apples. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah met him and said to him, You must come, for I have hired you with the love apples of my son, so sleep with me tonight. And God heard Leah, so she conceived and bore a fifth son to Jacob. Leah therefore said, God has paid me wages because I gave my servant to my husband. She therefore called his name Issachar. Leah afterwards conceived again a sixth son to Jacob. Then Leah said, God has endowed me, even me, with a good dowry, so that my husband will live with me, for I have borne him 6 sons. Therefore she called his name Zebulun. She afterwards also bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah. But God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her, and opened her womb, and she conceived and bore a son. Then she said, God has taken away my reproach. She therefore called his name Joseph, saying, The ever-living has added to me another son. But it occurred that when Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me away, and I will go to my own home and to my own country. Give me my wives and my children, whom I have served you for, because I must go with them, for you know the wages for which I have served to you. But he replied, Name your wages to me, and I will give you them. So he answered him, You know how I have served you, and how your herds have been with me, for they were small that were with you before me, and they have spread out to many, and the ever-living has blessed you at my feet. Yet have I gained even a house of my own? But he replied, What shall I give? Then Jacob answered, You shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will conduct your sheep and guard them. I will go over all your sheep today, counting every sheep speckled or spotted, and every black sheep among the lambs, and every spotted or speckled in the rams. They shall be my wages. And you shall assign them justly to me from today forward as my wages from you. All that is not spotted or speckled in the goats, or black in the sheep, it shall be a theft with me. And Laban replied, It shall be exactly as you say. He therefore separated on that day the marked and spotted rams, and all the marked and speckled of the goats from all that were white, and all the black sheep, and gave them to the hands of his sons, and put a 3 days' journey between them and between Jacob's. But Jacob shepherded the other sheep for Laban his father-in-law. Jacob then selected young wands of willow, and almond, and sycamore, and peeled them, peeling to the white so as to show the whiteness of the wands, and he stuck the wands which he had peeled near the watering troughs where the sheep came to drink, in the sight of the sheep, when they were hot for breeding after drinking. So the sheep were hot amongst the wands, and the sheep bore marked, and spotted, and speckled. Then Jacob separated the lambs, and placed the faces of the sheep towards the striped, and gave all the black among the sheep of Laban to his own flocks, and did not assign them to the sheep of Laban. Thus when any of the strong sheep were hot for union, then Jacob placed the wands before the eyes of the sheep, near the troughs, to inflame them among the wands. Before the feeble of the sheep, however, he placed them not. So the feeble went to Laban, and the strong to Jacob. Thus the man increased very much, and he possessed many sheep, and women and men servants, and camels, and asses. Chapter 31. However, he heard the sons of Laban talking, saying, Jacob will take all that our father has, and from what our father possessed he has made all his wealth. Jacob consequently watched the face of Laban, and perceived it was not with him as formerly. Then the ever-living said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your fathers and your birth, and I will be with you." So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his sheep, and said to them, "I see that the face of your father is not with me as formerly, but the God of my fathers is with me. Now you know that with all my strength I have served your father, but your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. God, however, did not allow him to do evil to me. For when he said, 'The spotted shall be your wages,' all the sheep were spotted. But if he said, 'The streaked shall be your wages,' then all the sheep were streaked. So God took away the flocks of your father and gave them to me. It also happened in the season of the heat of the sheep, that I raised my eyes in a dream, and saw the rams leaping on the streaked, speckled, and spotted sheep. And the messenger of God said to me in the dream, 'Jacob.' And I replied, 'I am here.' Then he said, 'Lift up your eyes and see all the rams leaping on the streaked, speckled, and spotted sheep. For I have seen all that Laban has done to you. I am the God of the house of God, which you consecrated there in the pillar, which you dedicated to me, where you vowed a gift. Go from this country, and return to the country of your birth.'" Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, "What portion or inheritance is there to us in the house of our father? Are we not like strangers and outcasts to him? For he sold us, and has eaten up our money. For all the wealth which God has stripped from our father, that is ours, and our children's, so do all that God has said to you." Therefore Jacob arose, and mounted his children and wives on camels, and collected the whole of his herds, and the whole of the property which he had acquired by trading, property he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Laban, however, had gone to shear his sheep, so Rachel stole the teraphim which were her father's. Thus Jacob stole away secretly from Laban the Aramee, without informing him, for he fled from him. So he fled, he and all he possessed, and they went up and crossed over the river, and he set his face to Mount Gilead. But on the 3rd day it was reported to Laban that Jacob had fled. Then he took his relatives with him and pursued after him, a 7 days' journey, and came up with him at Mount Gilead. But God appeared to Laban the Aramee in a dream by night, and said to him, "Guard yourself in what you do to Jacob, for either good or ill." Laban, however, overtook Jacob, and Jacob had pitched his tent on the hill, but Laban with his relatives on Mount Gilead. Laban then said to Jacob, "What have you done? You have carried away my daughters like captives, desolate. Why did you steal away to fly and deceive me, and not inform me, when I would have sent you away with pleasure, and with the sound of drums and harps? You have not even let me kiss my children and your children. You have acted like a fool. Truly there is a God who guides me from evil in acting with you. For the God of your father last night said to me, 'Guard yourself in dealing with Jacob for good or ill.' So go your journey, for you desire the house of your father. But why have you stolen my gods?" Then Jacob replied, "Because I was afraid, for I said, 'He will certainly steal his daughters from me.' If, however, you find your gods, it is not known to me. Go round what is with me, and take your own." For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Laban therefore went round the tent of Jacob and the tent of Leah, and to the tents of the 2 mothers, and did not find them. Consequently he left the tent of Leah, and went to the tent of Rachel. But Rachel had taken the teraphim, and placed them under the camel saddle, and sat upon them. So Laban searched all the tent, and could not find. And she said to her father, "Let it not grieve your eyes, my lord, that I am not able to rise before you, for the way of women is on me." So he searched, and did not find the teraphim. Then Jacob was furious, and abused Laban. And Jacob was savage, and said to Laban, "What is my fault, and what is my sin, that you have come after me? Now you have searched all my goods. What have you found of all the goods of your house? Put it before my people and your people, and they shall decide between us. During the 20 years I have been with you, I have not lost a sheep or a goat of yours, and I have never eaten a ram of your flock. I have not brought you the maimed. I have borne the loss from my own hand. I have restored to you the stolen by day and the stolen by night. I have borne the heat by day and the cold by night, and my eyes never rested.
This 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your sheep, and you cheated me over my wages 10 times. If the God of my father Abraham and the worshipped of Isaac had not been with me, then you would have sent me away empty. But God saw my weary feet and defended me last night. But Laban answered and said to Jacob, The girls are my girls, and the children my children, and the sheep my sheep, and all that you see is mine. And for the girls, what shall I do for them or the children which they have borne? However, now, come on, and let you and me make a settlement, and let it be a witness between myself and you. Then Jacob took a stone and set it up with both his hands, and Jacob said to his father-in-law, Let them collect stones. So they collected stones and made a heap. Then they feasted on the heap there, and Laban called it for himself the heap of witnesses, but Jacob called it for himself the heap of evidence. Laban also said, This heap is a witness between me and between you today. Therefore they called its name Gilad, and a watchtower, for he said, Let the ever-living watch between me and between you to keep each from evil. If you grieve my daughters, and if you take wives beside my daughters, when we are not together, let God see the witness between me and you. Then Laban added to Jacob, See this heap, and see the pillar which I have raised between me and between you. Witness this heap, and witness this pillar, if I should pass over to you beyond this heap, or if you should pass over to me beyond this heap, and this pillar for evil. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor judge between us, the God of our fathers. Jacob then swore by the worshipped of his father Isaac. And Jacob sacrificed a sacrifice on the heap, and invited his relatives to eat bread. So they ate bread, and they rested on the heap. Chapter 32. Laban then rose up in the morning, and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them, and went and returned to his own place. But Jacob continued his journey, and a messenger of God met him. So Jacob said, What a glorious encampment of God this place is! Therefore he called the name of that place, The Encampment. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau at Mount Seir in the land of Edom, and he commanded them, saying, You shall say this to my lord Esau, Jacob your servant says thus, I have lodged with Laban and stayed until now, and there are with me bullocks and asses and sheep and serving men and women, so I have sent to inform my lord to find favor in your eyes. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they reported, We went to your brother, to Esau, and he is also coming to call upon you, and 400 men with him. Jacob consequently was very greatly afraid, and it distressed him. So he divided the people who were with him, and the sheep and the cattle and camels, into 2 camps. Because, he said, if Esau comes to the one camp and assails it, then there will be the other to fly to. Jacob also said, God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, Return to the land of your birth, and I will be good to you. I am unworthy of all the mercies and of all the support which you have shown to me when I, your servant, passed over this torrent with my staff, and I am returning as 2 camps. Grant me a deliverance from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear that he will come and cut off mothers with children. But you have said, Supporting, I will support you, and I will make your race like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted for quantity. So he rested there that night. Then he took presents in his hand, presents for his brother Esau, 100 goats and 20 he-goats, 100 sheep and 20 rams, 30 suckling camels with their foals, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 asses. And he put them under the hands of servants separately, troop by troop, and said to his servants, Go before me and spread a space between troop and troop. He also ordered the foremost, saying, If you meet Esau my brother, and he asks you, Who are you, and where are you going, and whose are these before you? You shall reply, From your servant, from Jacob. A present he sends to my lord, to Esau. And look, also he is behind us. He ordered the second also, with the third, with all the servants who followed after them, repeating, You shall say the same words to Esau if he meets with you, and you shall also say to him, See, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he remarked, I will pacify him first by the presents that I send to him, and afterwards I will see by his face whether or not I can stand before him. Thus he sent presents over before him, but he himself stopped that night in the camp. However, he arose at night and took his 2 wives and the 2 second wives and his 11 lads, and crossed the ford of Jabbok. So he took them and passed them over the brook, and sent over all who were with him. Jacob, however, was left alone by himself, and a man wrestled with him until the departure of the darkness. He saw, however, that he was not equal to him, so he touched him in the hollow of the thigh, and struck the hollow of the thigh of Jacob whilst wrestling with him. Then he said, Release me, for the darkness is going. But he replied, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Then he answered, What is your name? And he said, Jacob. When he responded, Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have wrestled with a divine messenger as with men, and been equal to it. Then Jacob asked and said, Tell me your name. And he replied, Why do you ask my name? But he then blessed him. Jacob consequently called the name of that place Peniel, that is, God's face. For I have seen divinities face to face, and preserved my life. And the sun arose on him as he crossed over from Peniel, but he limped on his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel do not eat the sinew nerve from the foot to the thigh until this day, for he struck Jacob in the sinew nerve at the hollow of the thigh. Chapter 33. Then Jacob raised his eyes and saw that Esau approached, and 400 men with him. So he separated the children of Leah and of Rachel and of the 2 second wives, and placed the second wives and their children in the front, and Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph behind. But he passed to the front of them and bowed to the earth 7 times, whilst approaching to his brother. But Esau rushed forwards, and called to and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and wept. Then he lifted his eyes, and saw the wives and children, and asked, Who are these with you? And he replied, The children which God has given me, your servant. Then the second wives approached with their children, and they bowed. Leah also came forward, and her children, and they bowed, and afterwards Joseph and Rachel, and they bowed. So he asked, What is all this camp with you which approaches me? When he replied, To find favor in the eyes of my lord. Esau, however, answered, I have plenty, my brother. Let your own remain to yourself. But Jacob said, Not so. If now I have found favor in your eyes, take a present from my hand. For certainly I have seen your face, as if I had seen the face of God, and am delighted. Now do take the things which I have brought to you, for God has favored me, and because there is plenty for me as well. So he pressed him until he took them. Then he said, I will rise up and travel, and we will go along together. But he answered him, My lord knows that the children are many, and the sheep and the cattle with me are breeding, so if we drive them a single day, then all the sheep will die. But let my lord now go before me, and I will be traveling at my ease, according to the pace of the guide before me, and the pace of the children, until that I come to my lord at Seir. But Esau said, I will then assign to you some of the people who are with me. And he replied, Why have I found this favor in the eyes of my lord? So Esau returned that day on his journey to Seir, but Jacob pitched his tent and built himself a house and cattle yards, making an encampment. Therefore he called the name of the place Scuth. Afterwards Jacob went quietly to the village of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, on his return from Padan Aram, and encamped before the village, and bought that part of the land, where he pitched his tent, from the hand of the son of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 kesitahs. He also built an altar there, and called on God, the God of Israel. Chapter 34. But it happened that Dinah the daughter of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the country. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, the chief of the country, saw, and seized her, and violated her, and disgraced her. But his soul was attached to Dinah the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl, and spoke to the girl's heart. So Shechem spoke to Hamor his father, saying, Get me this girl for a wife. Jacob, however, heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but his sons were at the fold in the fields. So Jacob kept silence until their return.
Then Hamor the father of Shechem came to Jacob to speak with him. But the sons of Jacob returned from the field upon hearing it, and the men were grieved and very angry at it, for he had done an outrage to Israel in violating the daughter of Jacob, which ought not to be done. But Hamor spoke to them, saying, My son Shechem is attached by his soul to your daughter. Therefore give her to him for a wife, and you can give your girls to us, and we can give ours to you to take for yourselves, and you can dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Reside and travel about and possess it. Then Shechem said to her father and her brothers, Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you ask of me I will give it. Heap upon me a great dowry and settlement, and I will give whatever you say to me. Only give me the girl for a wife. Then the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father craftily, Because, they said, he has corrupted our sister Dinah. So they replied, We are unable to do such a thing as to give our sister to an uncircumcised man, for that would be a reproach to us. Yet, if you will agree with us that, like us, every male of you should be circumcised, then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will reside with you and be one people. But if you will not listen to us, then we will take our sister and depart. And the idea was good in the eyes of Shechem the son of Hamor. So the youth did not delay to do the thing. For he had an affection for the daughter of Jacob, and he was the most honored of all his father's house. So Hamor and Shechem his son went to the gate of their village, and addressed the men of their town, saying, These men are peaceable with us, and they travel in it, and the country lies open to their hands before them. We would wish to take their daughters to us for wives, and give our daughters to them. However, the men will only unite with us in this way, to reside with us and to be one people, by our circumcising every male of us, as they are circumcised. Their herds and possessions and all they have, will they not be ours if we agree with them and they reside with us? All who sat in the gate of the village listened therefore to Hamor and Shechem his son, and they circumcised every male who came to the gate of the town. But on the third day when they were in pain, Simeon and Levi, the two sons of Jacob, brothers of Dinah, each took his sword and went into the village quietly, and slew every male. They also slew Hamor and his son Shechem with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from the house of Shechem, and went away. Then the sons of Jacob came on the booty, and plundered the town, which had defiled their sister. They took the sheep, the cattle, and the asses, and the wealth in the village, and the wealth in the field, and captured their youths and little children, and wives, and plundered all the furniture in the houses. But Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, You are a sorrow to me. You have made me hateful to the inhabitants of the land, to the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I, being few in number, they will outnumber me and assail and destroy me and my house. They, however, answered, Ought they to use our sister as a harlot? Chapter 35. God afterwards said to Jacob, Arise, go to Bethel and reside, and make an altar there to the God who appeared to you in your flight from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his family and all who were with him, Throw away the strange gods which are among you, and purify yourselves, and change your clothing, and let us be rising. And we will go to Bethel, and I will there build an altar to the God who pitied me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the journey that I went. They therefore gave to Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hands, and the earrings that were in their ears. And Jacob buried them under the oak which was near Shechem. Then they marched, and a terror from God was upon their neighbors, and they did not pursue